Good evening, ladies and gentle peoples. It is the bluest room I have ever seen. My room's dark. Is this a World War II movie on HBO? Like, what happened? Well, my room isn't really this dark, but either way, it's June 10th, 2010, and this is Day 9 Daily number 134. Actually, this is interesting because my camera's never actually done this. Let me actually. Oh, look, it's deciding it wants to brighten. Because sometimes, let me actually pop this bad boy off and journey with me into my shirt. Oh, sometimes if you do this, if you put it up close to a bright color, it will readjust. But until then, I guess I'm not doing anything. So yeah, sorry the Day 9 Daily was delayed because there was the Team Liquid campfire that went on this evening, so that was a good bit of fun. I made myself up a little story ruha there that I'd recommend giving a little bit of a listen. I spent forever on it, so hopefully things I spend forever on turn out at least reasonably well. And I just cannot believe this. I'm looking at the monitor of my video, and this is the darkest thing I've ever seen. But whatever. So I wanted to let you know that it is my friend's birthday today. So I had to delay the daily, but now I have to shorten the daily to hit a birthday party. So this will actually be a two-part daily. We're going to be looking at the idea of going Mass Queen in Zerg versus Zerg. And I obviously have to give enormous credit to the player Zelniq with a Q at the end for introducing this to me, because there was one night where I just kept playing Starcraft 2. It was like 2 or 3 days before the beta shut down. This is when I played 41 games in a row. Yeah! Just non-stop hardcoring. And Zelniq and I were literally the only players alive on the internet, because we played, and then it was a good game. Then we were chatting, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go play another game. He's like, yeah, me too. We instantly get paired against each other. And then I was looking for a third game, and he was like, well, I don't want to start because I want to play someone different. I was like, oh well, whatever. If you want to start a match, then I doubt we'll be put together. He hit start, instantly paired together again, and in this third game, I hit a random Zerg against Zerg, and he went Mass Queen and Roach, and I was going Zergling Mutalist because, like all the other Zerg players nowadays, I just kind of went, hey, I can go Ling Mutas now because Roaches are 1 armor instead of 2, and 2 food instead of 1, and I'll be the best player in the world. However, it was weird because we got into a battle where he had about 11 or so queens, and I had 25 Mutalisks, 40 Mutalisks, some absurdly high number of Mutalisks, and he just kept transfusing his queens and ended up working really, really, really well. And he just created the most terrifying army ever. It was 10 queens and 15 hydras and 10 roaches, and I just could not break it. And we played this insanely long epic game, after which Zelniq said, hey, let me give you some replays of going Mass Queen. So he literally gave me 15 or so replays, and we're going to have the opportunity to look at about 2 of them. We're going to be able to do about a 30-minute daily today. We won't take any questions yet because, again, this will be 2 parts. So that way we can just sort of look at those in the end. And, of course, Zelniq will be delivering in this series. Zelniq is, of course, the pink Zerg in the bottom left against Dimaga in the top right. And, I love the fact that he gave me replays of himself against Dimaga, because, first of all, that's totally awesome that he has games against Dimaga. But second of all, it helps legitimize this sort of strategy. It helps legitimize this technique to have a player who is as high a caliber as Dimaga, and then to still have some chance of success. I mean, that is definitely the big thing. So Zelniq was explaining to me that he wants to send out a very early scout on Steps of War. You'll notice that he's just bouncing right in and back. Just wants to see if he's going for some sort of early pool strategy. That's the big emphasis, because really Zelniq is trying to get a hatchery down at his expansion as quickly as possible. And one important thing to note is that Zelniq mentioned that Mass Queens is particularly effective on Steps of War because with the close distances, you can creep all the way across to your opponent's base very, very easily. And as a result, your queens have incredibly, incredibly good mobility. So definitely, definitely something to consider. So there is the early hatch going down at the expo. And by the way, I always am delighted when I get the chance to see this. A player who throws down his hatch and then immediately rallies to the mineral and immediately sets a rally point for the hatchery. Just a sign of a very disciplined player. So here's Dimaga throwing down his spawning pool. Everything that Dimaga's doing looks pretty typical of a Zerg player. Building the extractor Holy shit. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the X-ray of the StarCraft 2 scene. Apparently the color's looking really good on the extractor. We're not too worried about its condition at this point. But either way, this is the increasingly normal way to open a Zerg. Extractor first, followed by Pool, to get the metabolic boost up real fast, and there's the Queen coming up as well. So this is a series of practice games, and generally there's a little bit of a different flavor to practice games. Because there's so much repetition, you get the chance to see the variety of strategies that they're doing. A lot of times you get to see a strategy executed many times in a row, so I wouldn't be surprised to see like Baneling busts, Baneling bucks getting tested, and that sort of thing. So already we're noticing some interesting aspects of Zelniq's opening. He's getting a Queen before gas. Wow, that's interesting. And then there's a second Queen before gas. The Zerglings arrive, and this is something that it's an interesting technique. The idea of, yeah, if he rushes, let him attack me. It's fine. The rush will get there, and it will do damage, but then my units will pop out and will fend it off. This is actually commonly used in Zealot rushes. Here come the two Spine Crawlers. And these two Spine Crawlers are primarily to deal with Baneling busts, which doesn't look like Dimaga's trying to pull off this game. But something that Zelniq was also explaining to me is that if you see a Baneling bust, you just stack your two Queens. Both Queens go to the ramp, and then you plant the Spine Crawlers at the front. You can deal with it relatively acceptably. So here's the Queens advancing, and of course already planting a creep tumor. Very important to plant that creep tumor, so that way we can join these two bases, get both Queens up in the action very quickly. Still no gas. That's so cool to me. That sort of really intense delay, that super powering aspect of it. So yes, here are the Queens here. Of course, they are amazing little blockers there. And you know, perhaps Zelniq wants to unburrow this, but perhaps not, because really, it takes probably the greater part of the mid-game to reburrow a Spine Crawler that is unburrowed. So, oh yeah, there we go. There's the Creep Tumor expanding. So, Dimaga doing, again, a pretty normal build in Zerg vs. Zerg. Getting the Zerging speed very fast, getting the Spire up very fast, getting the second gas very fast. Putting a little bit of pressure on with Zerglings, saving up. Could probably afford an expansion in just a moment, but is continuing to add on extra larva. So, already, you know, it's easy to look at this and sort of go, oh yeah, he's blocking with two Queens. He's not adding extra larva as best he could. Part of me kind of feels like maybe you could run a Queen down, vomit, and come back, but that's something that I would want to test. Perhaps it's just a little bit too risky. And a Roach Warren going down. Now here's something interesting to think about. The Roaches are so good at dealing with pretty much everything ground. They're great against Zerglings, they're great against Banelings. In small numbers, you can perhaps lose to a Baneling bust, but for the most part, after that Baneling bust phase, the Roaches are amazing on ground. And remember, the Queens can transfuse one another, and this is a super powering-oriented build. Actually, I mean, if I were testing a Mass Queen build, I personally would end up, looks like there's a little bit of confusion among everyone here. You know, if I were doing this build, I would feel inclined to, you know, maybe get my gas early, not power as hard. Oh yeah, Zelniq. I guess he's just referring to his very, 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 very late Roach Warren. Perhaps that was an accident. But either way, this is something that Zelniq did in the game against me, which was to get a very, very early third hatchery to begin Queen production. Because that's kind of weird, the fact that Queens end up being produced at the hatchery. They're not. And my game's starting to re-lag again, but you know, no big deal. Oh my god, I guess this is the problem that I have when loading up a replay pack, is that occasionally you end up with silly games like that, where a player makes a mistake, and it looks like that got nixed. But, you know, I'm not too concerned about that. That was number 204, so we're going to just jump right into 205, so hopefully we can actually see a game. But, you know, as humorous a snafu as that was, I think that that's, again, a reasonable thing to note that happens in a practice game. Again, we have Zelniq spawning in the top right. And in the bottom left, we have Dimaga. That's something to note about the way these things tend to go, is that, you know, you want to do a lot of repetition. You want to make sure that everything is as smoothed out as possible. So here he is, once again, building up his Overlord. But yeah, I really think that that is pretty critical, that block that happens at the front. And I was a little concerned that Zelniq's money was getting high, but I suppose that if you thought you made your Roach Warren and you didn't, that's a very natural reason for it to get really, really, really high, because you're like, well, I guess I can't make any units. So it looks like Demaga is pretty much doing the normal style opening, just getting a lot of gas. So the things I would be thinking about with this build is, do I lose to mass Zerglings? Do I lose to mass Zergling Baneling bust? And timing-wise, we're going to speed this up a little bit, because we did get the chance to see the exact same thing in that previous game that ended immediately. Alright, so the spawning pool finishes. There is the queen getting constructed there, and the queen getting constructed at the hatchery. And notice that this kind of bends your mind to see this huge variety, because anytime I see a build like this, I start to realize how many assumptions I had. Like, wow, I guess I was just getting my gas early because I thought that it was a good idea to get your gas early. Never occurred to me that perhaps, no, I should actually delay it to get these queens